Alright guys, we're back in the car, so you know what that means. I just got out of the theater for Avatar Fire and Ash, written and directed by James Cameron and written by Amanda Silver and Rick Jaffa. It stars Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Sigourney Weaver, Stephen Lang, and Oona Chaplin. Now, as always, we're going to begin with a brief non-spoiler review. I have to start out by saying I was completely shocked at how much I enjoyed this movie. Absolutely shocked. I've not been quiet about the fact that I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of the first or second movies. I thought they were pretty good, but I didn't like them as much as everybody else. And so I came into this with very moderate expectations. I assumed it was going to look good and there were going to be some good moments, but I wasn't going to come away from it wowed. And I was mostly wrong. I really, really, really enjoyed this. This is what I wanted from the sequel. It has some of the same, there's some moments where it has the same beat, but it is generally a different story structure. The introduction of the Ash people does wonders to make this world much, much more interesting, to show the Na'vi not as just a monolithic culture, but as people, various tribes with multiple differences, being able to see a little bit more of what the Sky people are doing on the world of Pandora is absolutely amazing. I was absolutely shocked. It looks fantastic. Most of the acting is really, really good, especially from the main cast. There is at least one person in particular who I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of. Part of that is from the dialogue that was written for them. Part of it is the performance itself, but by and large, I really, really enjoyed this. And like I said, I was not expecting to enjoy it at all. I thought, again, I thought it was going to be fine. I was expecting something of similar quality to the first Avatar or The Way of Water, and I was absolutely wrong. I think it is better in almost every single way. Almost every single way. I mean, this is a franchise that I do think has gotten progressively better as we've moved further into the movies, which is normally not the case. Typically, the sequel is not as good as the original, with very few expectations, like The Godfather 2, Empire Strikes Back, and so on. But I think there's that meme of the drawing of the horse, right? To me, if you were going to apply this trilogy to that meme, you would have the photorealistic horse for the first two movies, and the third section of the horse would be the horse that's flaming and on fire. No pun intended. I didn't think about that until just now. It is absolutely amazing, and if you, like me, are hesitant to go see this, I absolutely think that you should. This movie has retroactively made me like The Way of Water a little bit more, because many of the plot threads that I really enjoyed in this movie began in The Way of Water. Now, I still maintain that the basic structure of The Way of Water is the same as the first movie. I do not have that complaint for this movie at all. Like I said, there are certain beats that are pretty similar. In a few moments, there are actually scenes that I do think are simply recreated in this movie, but by and large, I loved it. If you are in any way interested in seeing it, get your tickets now. I will probably, honestly, go see this a second time, which I did not think was going to happen. I might see it again this weekend. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see, but it's really, really fun, and I really want to get into the spoiler discussion, but for that, we're going to have to do that in studio, so I will see you guys back there. Now let's roll the intro. Welcome back to the studio. We're back talking about Avatar Fire and Ash, and this time we're going to be diving straight into spoilers. So the first thing that I want to say is, as I mentioned, I believe in the no spoiler section, I was not a huge fan of the first Avatar or the second Avatar. I thought they were fine enough, but I wasn't in love with them. I didn't like them near as much as everybody else. And so I went into this sort of expecting that it was going to be okay. It was going to look amazing, but I really wasn't going to feel any particular way about it, and I was definitely wrong. I came out of the theater being absolutely shocked at how much I enjoyed it. In fact, I think I sent my dad a text message that said exactly that. I think I said to him, I'm flabbergasted at how much I enjoyed it. This is far and away the best movie of the trilogy. I would be surprised if it doesn't make $1 billion at least. I would be surprised if this isn't one of the highest grossing movies of all time. I would be surprised if this doesn't win at least a few Oscars. I have to say, it is really, really good, and it definitely turned me around on the franchise as a whole. I talked about in The Way of the Water how the movie basically felt as though it was the first movie but reskinned. The basic structure of the movie was the same. Of course, the beats themselves were slightly different, but the movie itself was very similar. It dealt with in Jake Sully going to a new tribe of the Na'vi and trying to become accepted by them. The way that I described it in that review was that the movie was the same, except that the roles of Jake and Neytiri were split among 7 people instead of 2. This movie did not have that really at all. In the beginning, I was super nervous that that's what it was going to turn into because of the inclusion of the traders, the wind traders. I don't know if they give them a specific name. I can't quite remember. But I was nervous about that. But then as soon as we get introduced to the Ash people, to the I can't remember what they're called anymore. I don't really remember any of the specific tribe names. I think in the first movie it's the Ometikaya, and then the second movie is the Metkayin or something like that, and I don't know what the Ash people are called. This is a problem that I have seeing movies in theaters. When I'm watching on TV at my home, I always have subtitles on, and so it is always a bit of a shock when I'm in a theater and I'm like, "Oh, I wish I could just read what they were saying because I don't know what that word was." In fact, it came into an issue later on with the name of the leader of the Ash people, whose name is Varang, played by Oona Chaplin. I could not figure out what her name was until afterwards when I was looking at the credits. But anyways, as soon as those people get introduced, and again, we're in the spoiler section here, as soon as they get introduced and they attack the Wind Traders, it becomes a vastly different movie. Now, there are still some similar beats. Of course, there are things that have shown up in each of the movies, what with some, the Na'vi, typically in the children, in the case of the second one, being captured by Quaritch and his goons, as well as like later on in the final fight sequence, there are some shots that I can't be 100% sure on, but I think are simply reused and reanimated, which I respect. I can't imagine, I vaguely know just through my research how much it costs, but it was a little jarring. I'm not gonna lie. This movie is so much more unique than the first two, and I really, really enjoy that about it. I came out of this might be my second favorite movie of the year. This really might be my second favorite movie. I'm not going to go through an entire full breakdown right now, although that would be a fun video to do. Maybe we'll do it in the beginning of January. I don't know. I know for a fact my top movie of the year is The Long Walk. I've said that before. I think it's far and away the best movie, the best new release that I have seen. It's not the best movie that I've seen this year because I've watched some old ones, a Humphrey Bogart movie, which I think I've talked about before, so I'm not going to reiterate here. But I think it's The Long Walk, and then it's this. I liked Predator Badlands. I really liked Predator Badlands. I really liked The Running Man. I liked, what else came out this year? Fantastic Four and Superman was fine enough. I know there are others, but they're Thunderbolts. That's one. There's more, but I can't pull them at the top of my head right now. I'd have to go back and look at the new releases. But I think easily Fire and Ash is my second movie of the year. And in fact, it's retroactively made me enjoy The Way of Water more. There are specific storylines that begin in The Way of Water that find their ends in this movie, right? This movie takes place practically immediately after the second one. And so things like the Payakan and what's going on with the Tulkun, and I'm trying to think of another example off the top of my head. In any case, that particular aspect, I really enjoyed the way that they incorporated that into this movie. I thought it was really, really interesting.
there was so much going on that I was surprised that it was able to pull it off and do it well, but I really do think it did. I am going to stick to my guns that The Way of Water is basically the first movie, but this is so different. And the only way that it can be different and the only way that it can be good is because of the second movie. If I had to rank them, I think that they have gotten progressively better each time. I would say, honestly, Fire and Ash for me is probably like an 8.5, maybe even a 9. Probably just an 8.5, but maybe a 9. I'd have to see it a second time and probably a third time to feel comfortable calling it a 9. Uh, let's just say 8.5. The Way of Water is probably a 7.5, and a first Avatar movie is a 7. Now, I know that's a hot take, and I know that people are going to get mad at me for saying that, but I don't care because that's how I feel, right? Like, it's a movie, okay? If you like it, I'm really glad that you do. If the first Avatar is a perfect 10 for you, I'm happy. I'm happy you can enjoy it. For me, it's not a perfect 10. For me, it's a solid 7. A solid 7. The Way of Water, I think, did a lot of things better than the first movie, but it's kind of similar. This one is vastly different. And I'm giving it bonus points for that, if nothing else, right? It obviously looks amazing. The story, I think, is super interesting. I love the storyline between Quaritch and Varang. It's so interesting to me because it's so fascinating to watch Quaritch become like the sort of evil version of Jake Sully, right? He is becoming the thing that he hates. He views, and I think, what's her name? Eddie Falco, the mom from The Sopranos. Yeah, Eddie Falco, or maybe it's Edie Falco, General Ardmore. She does have a role in the second movie, but she plays a larger role, slightly larger role in this one. I think she might even say this at some point, but Quaritch, for the past 3 movies, has been saying that Jake is a traitor to mankind, that he has been siding with the Na'vi events against his own people. And in this movie, Quaritch does the exact same thing. And it's like he doesn't realize it because he's so infatuated with Varang for all of these reasons, for whatever his own personal mindset is, he's becoming the thing that he hates. And it's really, really interesting to see. And I think that you can see the beginning of that immediately. You can tell when the shift really changes, when Jake and Quaritch and whoever the other guy is, whose name I'm not remembering right now, and I do feel bad because I kind of liked him. He wasn't great, but I kind of enjoyed him. I'm not seeing him on the list, so not important. When they are searching for the kids who have been kidnapped by the Ash people, Quaritch is looking for Spider, and Jake's obviously looking for his kids as well. From the very first moment when they interact and she uses her braid to link up with his and sort of tries to subjugate him, and he breaks the will, I think that's the very moment where he realizes, at first, I do think it's probably just, okay, this person can be useful to us. But it does swiftly become, this person, I really admire her willpower. I admire her, what's the word I'm looking for? Her ability to get the job done. Her dedication, perhaps. I think he really enjoys that. And then, obviously, it doesn't need to be said. There's obviously other aspects of her that he enjoys as well, but we're not going to get into that. This is a family show, okay? This is a family show. I don't know what you're trying to get me to say here. But it is fascinating to see that happen. And again, like I really don't believe that he knows it. Like, I still think he is trapped in that mindset of, I am doing what needs to be done, but he's become so obsessed with this hatred. He's let this overcome everything about him, his entire being. He's let that overtake him so much that he's become the thing that he hates. And I do enjoy, and this is a personal bias, I do enjoy like a story structure like that. I think by and large, that is something that I really, really enjoy. And I think it's done really well here. I do think, like I said, the inclusion of the Ash people is absolutely the most interesting thing that has happened in this world in all of the 3 movies. It's so interesting because you get to see, for once, you really get to see that the Na'vi are not like a homogenous people. Like, even from the beginning, of course, we've known that there are other tribes. We've known this, but they have all been homogenized in their belief in Eywa, in their belief in the world. They have slightly different cultures, but by and large, they are more similar than they are different. And so to be able to see a group of Na'vi who don't just believe something different, but believe the actual antithesis of what the rest of the Na'vi believe is so fascinating to me. It makes the world so much more real because that's what people are like, right? And that's what we want to see in movies. We want to see us people reflected in something fantastical, in sci-fi, something alien. We want to see that. And this to me is the first movie that really, really did that. I think the idea of Varang is amazing. I think it's so fascinating because you can understand where she's coming from. I feel like anybody, if you think critically, can put yourself in that mindset, right? It's the same idea as the radical atheists that we see in today. They are people who are like, if God is so good, if God is real, then why did my grandma have a heart attack, right? We know I feel like everybody knows those people. Everybody knows a handful of those people. And to see that in this way, to see that paralleled in the Na'vi culture is really, really fascinating. Obviously, Varang takes it to a much more extreme route than most of the people in the world, but that's what's interesting about it. You can see how destructive anybody can get. You can truly see how destructive anybody of any idea can be. And we'll talk more about that when we get to Neytiri's specific arc. But to show Varang as a person who was like, Eywa is the planet, Eywa is nature, Eywa is all of this. And nature is the thing that destroyed my village and killed my people. So Eywa is not so great. It's very, very fascinating. And the performance by Oona Chaplin is absolutely amazing. I'll go a little bit more in depth on her in a little bit. But for now, I do want to switch to Neytiri because I brought it up a moment ago. And I brought it up as an example of how it's interesting to see all the different sides of people. And we see a side of her that I feel like we have not seen in the first 2 movies. I mean, a little bit in the first one. We obviously see it a little bit in the first one. But I feel like we don't see it in the second one, which is a little surprising to me because obviously Spider plays a role in the second one, pretty decent sized role in the second one. But the sort of inherent racism that Neytiri feels towards the Pinkskins, the humans, is really fascinating. And to see it play out against somebody like Spider is really, really interesting because Spider has been with them for as long as their children have, right? Their children grew up together. That's why Loak is constantly calling him brother. That's why their bond is so close and why the children in the beginning, when Jake and Neytiri decide, okay, we need to ship Spider back to his homies. We need to give him back to Norm and whoever the other guy is, whose name I'm not going to find right now, unfortunately, because he's not in it that much, but I really do enjoy him. I can't spend time. I'm not going to get lost in this. Anyways, I'm looking to try to find it still. Because they grew up together, because of that bond, I almost lost what I was saying. Because of that bond, that's why when they decide to ship him off, all of the kids are like, no, what are you doing? This is our brother. We can't leave him. He has been with us for, I think it's like 15 or 16 years or something like that. I mean, literally, they've all grown up together. I think if I remember correctly, Loak is the younger brother. So Loak has literally no understanding of life without Spider there. And of course, Kiri, I think, is a little bit older, but she would have been young when they had Spider. I'm a little bit fuzzy on the timeline. In any case, the point is, it's really interesting to see Neytiri lash out so hard against Spider when he is essentially a member of the family, right? He's just a member of the family as Kiri is, as Sigourney Weaver's character. He's so tied in to everything, so it's interesting to see that. Now, of course, I mentioned the family bond. Kiri has a different sort of bond with Spider, which I think is interesting, really, in its own right, because these are the two most outsider of the characters, right? Kiri uh, has never known her parents. They don't really know how they got her, how she got there, at least in the beginning. That is, of course, revealed in the later movie, in this movie. But she doesn't really know, so she feels like an outsider. She does feel like a member of the family, but it's always that she is different. And that's especially showcased in her connection to Eywa and how fragile that, and actually how non-existent it is. It's not even fragile. And so, of course, she's going to have like a level of connection with Spider, who is the other outsider, who is different from everybody else. And of course, they have a relationship that I think is really, really sweet. We do have the moment where he nearly dies, and then Kiri calls out to Eywa to resurrect him, essentially, which I don't know how I feel about that. It is weird. It's fine for the movie, it makes sense, but I don't really like the idea that he can be resurrected and have his entire physiology change. I think my main problem with it is less that his physiology has changed insofar as he can breathe the air. But to me personally, it's the growing of the braid that makes it weird to me. Now, it plays out in some really cool things later on. I think they use it well. It's not just something that happens to happen. It obviously is important in the story and in the ending. And for that reason, it pays off. And I think, like I said, it's done well. I'm not huge on it. It is a little bit weird. It is a little bit weird. But there are lots of other weird things about this movie and about this universe. So I'm not going to draw the line in the sand there. On Kiri, I do want to address the fact that she is essentially immaculately conceived through Eywa, which is kind of interesting, kind of weird. Again, it's a story bead where I'm like, okay, this is a little bit weird, but I do think it pays off when we get to the end. I'm curious like how that's going to evolve and stuff in the future. I'm not 100% sure. But I think it plays off well, and it makes for some absolutely amazing visuals in the final battle when she calls on Eywa to attack all of the Quaritch and his homies, attack all the humans. I can't remember what they call that now. The Battle Mother, maybe? I don't know. I don't remember. It reminds me of Loon in World of Warcraft. When Tyrande becomes the... I'm not going to remember what this is called either. I haven't played WoW in quite a bit. And also that event was a very long time ago. Night? I'm not going to remember. I'm really sorry. I feel bad. I used to know literally everything there was to know about Warcraft, and now I can't remember. In any case, the Night Warrior. There it was. I knew that I had to Google because it was really going to bother me. But that storyline in WoW was really, really interesting and really good. And we sort of have a vaguely similar idea playing out here in Fire and Ash, with Kiri kind of playing the role of the Night Warrior, although she's not undergoing this ritual like Tyrande is. In any case, I think it works out really well. And like I said, it lends itself and becomes some absolutely amazing visuals at the end. Some amazing visuals. We have a great moment with Jake and Spider and Quaritch that I think plays out really, really well and is really well written. And of course, the acting there is really good too. Speaking of Spider, I had forgotten up until now the whole conclusion of the storyline with Neytiri. I think Neytiri spending the whole movie arguing to just basically sacrifice Spider, for it ultimately to end with Jake being like, yeah, you're right, we have to do this. And then Jake deciding, I can't do this. I can't do it. I thought I could, but I'm not strong enough. And then for Neytiri to have the realization that no, this is wrong, and for her to sprint off after them and to cry. I think she cries when she realizes that he hasn't, taken that final leap. I think it is really, really well written, and again, well acted. Zoe Saldana, as always, is amazing in this. Sam Worthington does have some really, really good moments. A lot of the interactions with Quaritch are really interesting. I think one of the more interesting aspects of this movie, it's not the most interesting to me, but something that is very interesting, is the ability to actually see the city that humanity is building up when Jake is captured by Quaritch and Varang and put on display. It is really, really interesting. I was not expecting that. And maybe they had shown that in the trailers and I had just forgotten. That's 100% possible. But I don't remember seeing the human city. And like I said, I could be wrong, but I don't remember that. And so it was really surprising to see. And I was actually really, really glad. I was enjoying the fact that we get to see basically all aspects of life, nearly all aspects of life on this world. We see a little bit of the original forest people from the first movie, not a lot, but a little bit. We get to see the reef people, whom of course we saw in the second movie as well. We get to see the ash people in their sort of culture and society, and we get to see how humans have been living here. It's absolutely fascinating, and it was great to see all of the corners of this world come together in this really interesting sequence and a mashing of scenes and just this great movie. It was really, really enjoyable. All right, on a final note, I think it's time that we begin to slowly settle things down. So we're going to do what we do with every review. I'm going to talk about who I think is the best actor and what I think is the best scene in the movie. For starters, we're going to talk about best actor. I think, me personally, without a doubt, this has to go to Oona Chaplin playing Varang, the leader of the Ash people. The moment she stepped on screen, or I shouldn't say the moment because we see her flying in this big fight sequence, but the moment that we see her actually leading the Ash people and walking around, I was immediately enthralled. It was so different from every other Na'vi that we had seen. And of course, Oona Chaplin is the daughter, or excuse me, not daughter, granddaughter. I don't know what the connection is. She's a descendant of Charlie Chaplin, right? And so there's like a history of really understanding movement on screen, and that really, really shows through here. I was listening to an interview with Neytiri, with Zoe Saldana and Oona Chaplin for, I don't know which outlet anymore, but they were talking about the movement and how, man, I keep forgetting the names, how Varang moves so differently than Neytiri. And the way that Oona Chaplin described it is that Neytiri, when she walks, she leads with her heart, she leads with her chest because she is open to Eywa. She's open to the world, right? Whereas Varang is not. She's closed herself off to the world. She's closed herself off to Eywa. So it wouldn't make sense to lead with the chest. So what's the next obvious choice? To lead with the gut. So it visually is very different. Not to mention the fact that she very rarely blinks. She very rarely blinks, which is something that Anthony Hopkins did in Silence of the Lambs. It's a surefire way to unconsciously communicate with the viewer that this person is a little bit psychotic, like that they shouldn't be trusted, that there's something different or wrong with them or whatever. There's something a little iffy. And I think Oona Chaplin plays that off really well. Now, she doesn't go the whole movie without blinking, but she blinks very, very rarely. And the performances with the dialogue is absolutely amazing. And that is going to sort of lead into what I think is the best scene of the movie, which is similarly when the children have been kidnapped by the Ash people, specifically when Varang is talking to Kiri, to Sigourney Weaver, about Eywa. It's so well acted. The writing there is absolutely amazing. If I remember correctly, this is the moment where she describes what happened to the village and why she doesn't believe in Eywa. I think she has Spider and she's got the knife up to his throat, and she says, "If I cut your friend's throat now, do you believe Eywa would save him?" And Kiri is like forced to answer no. And you could tell that it kind of breaks her and messes with her a little bit. And of course, this is early on where she is still struggling with her faith. She doesn't understand why Eywa isn't speaking to her. So it makes it so much more powerful with the character development that we have on Kiri's side. But Oona Chaplin there is really, really good. Again, anytime she was on the screen, I was like, what is she like? How crazy is she going to be now? I also have to mention the design is really fascinating, especially of those blades. Watching the movement when they're doing that the first time we see this sort of ritual where she takes the heart and eats the heart of the people, when they're dancing around the campfire and she's like swinging and swirling the blades, it was mesmerizing, which is of course the point of the ritual, right? To sort of become entranced in this. And so to feel that as an audience member, be like, I can't look away. I can't look away. Is really, really interesting. I think it's really well done. I think Oona Chaplin is amazing. I think Sam Worthington is better in this movie than he was in the previous two. Zoe Saldana is great. That being said, Spider, a lot of his, and part of it's the writing and part of it's the acting, wasn't as good. And in the Way of Water, I had said that Britton Dalton Loak was the best actor. I can't say that here either. Some of his performances weren't quite as well done, but he's still really good. He's still pretty good. I would be interested to see what he's got in store in the future, as he continues to make more movies. If they make another Avatar, or if he enters into some other contract, I think that would be really, really interesting. Of course, Sigourney Weaver is great as well. She's like we mentioned last time, she's great in everything. And though I still don't like the fact that she's like 76 and it's a 70-year-old's voice coming out of a 16-year-old's body. I had this conversation with rather, somebody commented this on one of our TikToks saying that they agreed that it was weird, but the revelation of her in her origin in this movie sort of explained it away and made them okay with it. It makes me feel a little bit more okay with it, but still at the same time, I'm like, but you wouldn't sound like you're 76, right? You would sound like you're a kid. You're just a child, Sigourney Weaver. No, I get that that would be difficult. You would, if you were going to do that, you would have to find an actress who sounds relatively close to a young Sigourney Weaver, which would be just, frankly, you just waste a lot of time doing it, which I respect. I understand. I do think it's a little less jarring now, but it is still kind of jarring. I'm still not a huge fan of it, but of course the performance as always is great. Even a lot of the secondary characters like Soraya, played by Bailey Bass or Bailey Bass, the female leader of the Reef People, Kate Winslet, Ronal, is really good as well. Tonawari, who I believe is the male leader of the Reef People, played by Cliff Curtis. Really, honestly, the movie itself is very well cast. The movie's very well cast, and that's been the case from the very beginning. I don't know. It's really good. I was really shocked. I do obviously have problems, and I didn't spend a lot of time talking about them in this episode simply because again, I was just shocked at how much I enjoyed it. Like, I really was not expecting that at all. I mean, we had a whole Patreon exclusive episode where we were going to talk about what we wanted or expected to see in Avatar Fire and Ash, but both Shade and I were so uninterested that we started talking about Star Trek. You know what I mean? So I really didn't have any expectation, if I'm being honest. Or I had, again, like I said, my expectation was that it was going to look good, but I wasn't really going to have a good time. And ultimately, I thought I was going to waste $15. And I don't think I did. That being said, and I was thinking about this earlier, or rather after I saw the movie and had forgotten about it until now, this is the only one that I've seen in 3D. So maybe because it's 3D, the visuals were different. And so I was less able to notice like some of the iffier parts like I did in the first and second one. So that could actually play a part. I'm curious to see how I feel once this is available for streaming. But I really enjoyed it, and I think if you haven't seen it, you should go give it a watch. But go ahead and comment down below what you thought of Avatar: Fire and Ash. I really liked it, I really did. Make sure that you subscribe down below for more nerd content and commentary, and we will see you guys next time to talk more about all things nerdy.